Sega.
Let's go!
In this game you play a reluctant witch called Cotton, tasked with saving the world by a fairy called Silk. But Cotton isn't doing this out of the goodness of her heart, rather she was promised tasty candy called Willow as a prize, which she's somewhat addicted to. An unusual setup for sure. This was one of the first shoot-'em-up games to be termed as a cute-em-up due to the cute cartoon graphics seen in the game. But it's not an entirely easy game, with a number of systems to manage whilst playing. First, we'll look at the 1991 arcade version running on Sega System 16B hardware. This I'll emulate using MAME. We'll then compare it to the Cotton Reboot games, which came out in 2021. These consist of a port of the X68000 Japanese home computer version, along with a remade Arrange version with fancier graphics and even more complicated mechanics. The Cotton series has spawned several titles over the years. Many use Sega hardware, but only the first game in the series, subtitled Fantastic Night Dreams, has a Sega logo on the title screen, so it qualifies for this playlist. It uses the popular System 16B hardware, which can be installed in various cabinet types, as shown here. The attract sequence begins with the logo falling into place behind Cotton and Silk. The background then slowly shifts to nighttime. This is followed by a short demo of the first stage of the game, showing off some of the key gameplay ideas and elemental magic attacks. This is then followed by a ranking high score table, before the short attract sequence loops. When you start the game, you get told the story of how the world was plunged into darkness. You're then introduced to Cotton. I'll let this one play out to set the scene. There's some great use of English here. And so the first stage begins. I accidentally fire off the magic quickly because it's easy to do so, as the shot and bomb keys do different things depending on how long you hold them for or press them together. The EXP bar at the bottom fills as you grab certain crystals, which then power up your shots and bombs. Shooting crystals makes them change colour, and collecting coloured ones gives you elemental magic power-ups, so there's a fair bit of strategy here despite the basic looking nature of the game. If you shoot the urns with a face on, then they'll reappear with a bonus fairy who you can collect to help you fight the bad guys. Holding down the bomb button releases the fairies to attack, which I do on this guy, then promptly get taken out by a falling rock. The stage progresses uphill and into the woods before the end of stage boss appears. There's a cool ground smashing effect here which none of the reboot versions contains. And I have to use a continue. The game is relatively unfair though, as if you use a couple of continues within one stage, you're sent right back to the start. Defeat the bad guy and you're rewarded with teacups falling from the sky. Another crazy cinematic plays out, where Silk tells Cotton to collect 7 Willow Sweets in order to make a giant one, which she likes the sound of. The second stage starts in a creepy wood, with some new types of bad guys to avoid or shoot. The mid-stage boss is a scary tree who spits out seeds that generate into mini-trees and smash me repeatedly, causing me to use a continue. Eventually, after a few more lives, the tree gives up, and I make it up the screen, then get hit by an arrow. It's here the unfair continue kicks in, and I have to start the stage from the beginning. After repeating this process twice, I quit the game, then tweaked the arcade machine dip switches in MAME to make it easier and give me more lives. This didn't help me that much though, as you'll see now. After the rock wall, there's a creepy shifting background effect as you enter a graveyard. Mini Grim Reapers come from all sides, and zombies throw their heads at you. I eventually make it to the end of stage boss, Death, who promptly kills me. With a continue starting me back at the beginning of the stage, I decide that's enough of the arcade version, so enjoy a minute of this original version without me talking over it. In 2021, Beep released Cotton Reboot, programmed by Rocket Engine, with support from other studios and licensed from Success. This wasn't based on the original arcade version, it was actually based on the 1993 Japanese X68000 computer port, which improved the gameplay and graphics over the original. This version starts with a warning about not making copies of the game, which is pretty 1990s, before the beep Success, and Rocket Engine logos. We then get this very colourful title screen,
Cotton Reboot!
and nothing else. The main menu lets you choose between X68000, Arrange and some other modes, plus offers a manual for the Arrange mode of the game. It's quite funny as Silk and Cotton discuss how the game works. I won't go through all of this here though, but it's quite useful as the Arrange mode is even more complicated than the X68000 or arcade original. Choosing the X68000 mode shows how close this version was to the arcade original, with the changing day to night background. There's also an options menu where you can tweak various settings, but no demo. The game begins with a version of the intro animation. The artwork here is very similar to the arcade, but the copy has been rewritten with less English mistakes. I won't play it all through here, but
Let's go!
the first stage is enhanced over the arcade with more translucent warping clouds in the background, a nice 3D parallax scaling effect on the water, and more varied enemy attacks. However, the game does flicker a bit as it starts moving up the stage, as though the emulated version doesn't perfectly fit the display. The rock boss is easily dispatched here, and the falling rocks don't get me this time. The rest of the stage plays out in similar fashion to the arcade original, though there are more bad guys on screen. The end of stage boss shakes the level, but it doesn't break up the floor in the cool way it did in the arcade, which is one thing the arcade version has over this port. Sound is also generally more bombastic on this version. Tea time is unchanged from the arcade. The next animation plays out in a similar fashion to the arcade version. Stage 2 is a bit more hectic than the arcade, again with more bad guys than the original, especially the blade-like flying fish. The mid-stage tree boss is dispatched more easily here though, as there's a bit more screen space to move around than the arcade. Here the fairies gain fire magic and help greatly. before I get into the graveyard. The wibbly-wobbly background is present and correct. This time I managed to survive death, figuratively and literally, with some shield magic. I would explain how I triggered this, but I think it was more luck than knowing all the special key presses. And eventually death, dies? The next animation is pretty short, before we start the third stage in some floating islands. And here I come a cropper and decide not to take this version any further, as there's the arranged version to dig into yet. Before that though, here's a minute of this version, so you can hear how it sounds. The arranged version begins with a much upgraded title screen. This game runs at 1280 by 720 resolution, so has a lot more pixels to work with, yet still retains the core pixel art style. The intro on this version is much prettier, obviously. Again, I won't play through all of this, as we'll compare them later on in the head-to-head section of this video. Again,
Let's go!
Stage 1 looks way prettier here, with upgraded graphics, magic effects and more. If you now shoot through a crystal, your shots will split into two. As before, you can upgrade your bombs and firepower, but now you can also upgrade your magic too. It can become very overwhelming at times. Can you even see the rock monster here, for instance? Sometimes you can't even work out what's happening. The stage design is identical to the X68000 version, though it contains more of everything. Maybe this is to appeal to die-hard shoot-'em-up fans. The end of stage boss is now called Hirata and seems more powerful. At least the health bar helps you work out how the fight is going. Phew, never have I needed tea more.
Tea time!
Interestingly, on both the X68000 and arranged versions, your character doesn't disappear on the high score breakdown screen. The improved animation continues here, like the X68000 port, it's fully voiced. The second stage looks fantastic, and right away you're attacked by flying fish blades, which didn't happen in the other versions, as everything is amped up to 11. You also have a focus button, but I'm still not sure what that power grants you exactly. Here's the tree battle, and with my amped up powers, it's not long until I'm past it. Over the rocks into the graveyard, the graphics go way over the top. The graveyard gives way to Death, who seems to have a zombie dog supporting him. I use a continue here, and eventually defeat him, and the dog turns to dust. The next animation artwork is a little questionable before the adventure continues. The floating island stage is now backed up with hefty guitar rock music, and despite the overwhelming graphical overload, I get further than the X68000 version. The mid-stage boss is this fiery Balrog. The stage then takes off into the clouds and into a large building. The end of stage boss is called Medusa and takes the form of this snake-woman-soldier hybrid. I get defeated here and decide to stop, as this isn't a full game playthrough, just a comparison. The reboot version also contains a time attack mode, where you have infinite lives and see how many bad guys you can destroy in a preset time limit. It's totally crazy, transitioning from day to night, and eventually giving you a final score to check out on the global high score table. Now, enjoy a minute of this version in action. Let's compare all three versions at the pixel level. First up, here's the Let's Go panel from the arcade. Wiping across to the X68000 version, you can see both the different aspect ratio, yet also how the copy has been likely increased in resolution. And wiping across to the arranged version, it's a whole new world. Here's the opening stage of the arcade game. Wiping to the X68000 version, you can see improved sky, water, and many sprites have been redrawn. And the arranged version is another step up again. Here's the start of stage 2 with the forest and flying eyeballs. The X68000 version has redrawn scenery and a few more enemies than the arcade. And the arranged version looks rather over the top. Finally, here's the arcade's scary tree boss. Wiping across to the X68000 version, you can see how much more screen space you have to fight in. And the arranged version looks like a professional cartoon, although the interface at the bottom has become much more cluttered. Let's put several sections head to head, starting with the introduction animation.
大好きなコットンという魔法使いがいました。
お願いです。助けてください。私の世界が闇の魔物たちに支配されてしまいました。どうか闇の魔物を倒して私たちの世界を救って。あれ？魔物のボスを倒せば妖精の国名産のウィローが手に入るのにな。レッツゴー
arcade version is a unique, colourful, great sounding arcade game, whose cute graphics belie slightly complex and harder than it looks gameplay. The X68000 port in Cotton Reboot shows how much of a graphical and audio upgrade that version got, excluding the ground shaking effect of the first stage's boss. And the Cotton Reboot Arrange mode takes the basic gameplay and revs it up to maximum, occasionally being too far over the top to see what's going on. Its addition of extra power-up elements makes it even more complicated to play, but it's fun to just smash everything, and the redrawn cutscenes are even more amusing than the original. Oh, and a little spoiler about the end of the game, Cotton never got her candy. Well, they had to set up a sequel, right? If you like this look at Cotton Fantastic Night Dreams, then give it a like, or subscribe, leave a comment, ring the bell, etc. to be notified when I upload something new. And join me next time to travel through time.